Use your difference to make a difference.
We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Every story can change the world.
My name is Tsunami, but you will soon see why they call me Slay.
Bobbly, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm a character. I'm the guy that brings the joy into the room.
Life will throw you challenges, but it's about how you handle the process that will reveal your true potential.
My journey is to take one Africa to the world.
I'm a tomboy. I like to get down and dirty when I need to.
If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Cover your top before you're born.
Build a team, execute the dream.
I believe sometimes in life you have to create your own opportunity.
My motto in life is simple. Don't worry, be happy.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. You know, this is my first time here, so I'm quite excited to be here with you guys.
Finally. Welcome.
Thank you. You know, so I thought we have an interesting topic today. I feel good about this topic, you know. Everybody should be able to speak about this. It's about stereotypes. You know, right? We'll go through it, you know. There's stereotypes, because there's two stereotypes, I think, for everyone in this room. There's being black in America, and there's being African. You know, it's like the sub-community, subculture. So I'll start with the fellas, because you know it's a big thing now, you know, where there's so much with the black man in America. So what do you guys think of some of the stereotypes of being a black man in America? Aggressive? Why? Like in what nature?
I mean, they feel like just our presence alone is...
They.
They. They feel like even just us walking down the street, we're just a threat. Like, they perceive us as a threat, and
Which is not the truth, of course.
yeah, but you know, also lazy.
Damn.
Aggressive, lazy.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
Right,
weird
it's a little weird
combination.
because, like,
Yeah,
you
like,
can't-
you aggressive and then you lazy. I mean, as far as like work ethics are concerned.
The couple of stereotypes that annoy me about blacks and Africans are that, like I said earlier in the show, that they're aggressive, they could be lazy, they're thugs. With Africans, they're scammers. Black men don't take care of their family. Black women are angry, have an attitude problem. Yeah, we'll just go with that for now.
So we're aggressive outside of the workspace, and then we're lazy inward.
I think with, you know, I mean, there's definitely that stereotype, and then to add to Akron's point, I think the proverbial stereotype with African Americans or black people in America has always been that you can do certain types of jobs. You're the athletes, you're the entertainers, but when it comes to you know, whether you do the professional quote unquote jobs, the doctors and all that, it's often seen as why you here, what's your role?
Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, like you must have cheated, or this is not a black enough job, right? So that's been a stereotype.
So like they're basically waiting for you to fail.
Yeah, almost like, or you almost, at least in my
belong.
position, because I go into offices all the time, and with me and my business partner, when we run businesses, people often act surprised because they're like, I wasn't expecting someone of your value, and they've said that to me. Some people have said that to me, and it's been interesting hearing that. Yeah, I mean, it happens once in a while.
They smooth with it. They don't directly say it.
And
I've had it direct.
You had it just direct straight to you.
Yeah.
Milan, what do you think?
Also, these people always think like black men don't tip, right?
Don't tip.
Don't tip.
Oh
or
yeah, at
undertip.
restaurants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
restaurants,
Okay.
cabs. It's crazy. Like we have that, and even the funny thing is, it's I'm just saying, black people also have that same stereotype thinking of other black people.
Right,
'Cause,
so
like,
it's not just
example,
outside
it's
of
not
the
just
black
outside
community,
of
it's
the
also
community,
blacks
it's also-
feeling
yeah.
that way about other
Mhm.
blacks.
Yeah, because I've had experiences where and know people who, like, especially the yellow cab drivers.
Mhm.
You will try to stop a cab and then they will move. Why? Because they will tell you wouldn't know, but then someone told me, like, oh, I don't like picking black people because they don't tip. And at restaurants, I got to, because it happened to me like all the time. Like sometimes when you're looking for taxis, a black man wouldn't pick a black man. New York cab drivers do not stop for black people. I don't know. I've experienced that, but I didn't know that was it because they were thinking, oh, I might not tip them. But then I have one at home watching, and he told me, he's a cab driver, he said, oh, I don't pick Africans or black people because they don't tip. Some of us tip. I might not tip like 25. Maybe I would tip like maybe 5%. And then the restaurant thing, like people do not, like servers, as soon as they see black people on the table, they're like, oh no, just go, like, cause you know, they feel like, no, we don't tip or we undertip. Like, I hate that. Even New York, yeah.
I agree with that because I
Yeah.
feel like that's one of those
In the
situations. That's why I like
restaurants.
Uber and Lyft more because it's like you have no choice but to get me. Nah, a black person stopping a yellow cab in the city is like a sport. Like I really think it's difficult.
Because we don't tip.
Yeah. That I don't know that I agree.
I thought it was a location thing because most of us
tip,
live in the outer boroughs where, you know, it's like we're either going deep in the Bronx or deep in Brooklyn where they don't want to make that
They don't want
trip.
to drive.
Do you tip though?
But then
I don't tip
Me
taxi
too.
drivers.
Me too.
I don't tip taxi drivers, but I tip at restaurants a lot.
Do you under tip or you?
No, actually over tip because one of my exes worked in a restaurant. She actually was a waitress, so I've always learned to tip from
Exactly.
But then I think about it, should it really matter? At the end of the day, the cab driver is to pick somebody up. You could have two heads, one arm, whatever the case is. Your job is to pick somebody up.
No, it's not.
It's I know, but it's just obviously they're thinking, well, where they're going to tip me, or is something going to happen? And the stereotype to think, well, what makes you think that a black African male, or whatever the case is going to do something that anyone's capable of doing anything, you know?
It's a bias.
No, which we all know that it is, and it ain't going to change. You know, we've gone through a lot, but we're still here, and we're all proud of being black. And it's a beautiful thing, you know, but, you know, stereotype is always going to be there.
I'm going to stop you for now. We got to ask the ladies.
Okay, cool.
Some of the stereotypes of being a black woman. What do you think some of the stereotypes are? What do you hear? Not just from Dade, like also, like they said earlier, in the black community.
For me, I would think for like one of the stereotypes that people think about a black woman is like we have like a lot of kids and we cook a lot. Like in France, I know in France. I don't know about here, but in France, if you see a black woman, she usually have a lot of kids with her.
Really?
And they usually said that we carry a strong smell because we like to cook a lot of spices. So when they see a black woman everywhere, like it comes with a lot of kids. She's dirty looking. Wow. She's a typical
Wow.
So that's but France is different.
The racism in France is it's a different kind.
No, United States I haven't really like I heard about the angry black woman. It has to do because of
I feel like that's an international
TV
thing. Like
and TV shows. That's the only thing that I could think of.
Which I can add to like typecasting, which I'm sure you even see with like men. They're typecasted as, you know,
the drug dealer,
the victims, the gangsters. Then women, you can find the angry black woman, the baby mama with all these kids and has baby daddy drama, whatever.
Some of the stereotypes I hate, which I also try to shake off myself, is this CPT, color people timing. It's like African timing, the no hurry in Africa. Like that whole, we're always late to things. I try to be really punctual. Not to say there wasn't a time that I wasn't, but it's just that it just all boils down to what you do with your time and how you respect other people's time. And I think if you're in your personal life trying to shake off some of these stereotypes, then it's for the greater good of everybody.
Whatever it is,
and even also in typecasting, there's always the nerdy black, like the Carlton one. I feel like there's this
the coon,
exactly. You're either super black where you're dangerous or you're a coon type black.
Or like I hate when people are like, oh, you talk white. Because you talk proper. And I'm just like all the time. Because I know I have a vast vocabulary, you're upset.
There are times where even in college, I'm in classes with, I
I'm in classes with like a diverse group of people, and they see you walk in and you like look cute or whatever, you're the black girl in the class, and then you start speaking, they're like, oh, you're smart. Duh. Like, that's why I'm here. Like, and I can be. So it's even now, even here, like there's still stereotypes that we have with each other that we just need to just.
There's a show with this actress. What's it called? It's like, you know, it's on Netflix. I don't know if
Chewing Gum.
Is it Dear White People? Dear White People.
Dear White People. Yeah, there was a movie and they made so.
Yeah,
that's a good show.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting and hilarious.
So, right now, there's this celebration of black women, which I like, but then it's like it's borderline over sexualizing.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's like you.
I totally get what you're saying, because it started at first with like curly-headed kids. And it was like, okay, you want your kid to be this, but it's a little creepy how you're like overly, you know, like putting them in this platform that this is what I want. Like, it's cute, it's sexy, or they're gonna have missed calls, they're not gonna reply messages, and then the same thing is happening for a dark-skinned woman
versus dark-skinned girl.
And I feel like every dark-skinned woman you see online has like baby oil on them, and it's just a sexual thing. It's not a chill. Like, you know, the dark-skin thing is in now, but it's like they're always oiled up, and it's just people aren't being themselves. So I think for you to be in, you have to be sexy and good looking, where you could just be yourself and be in. So there's that sexualized thing with being cool that I think is a little bothersome. So even with kids, where it's like this kid's attractive and it's like, oh, this one's gonna break a lot of hearts, and you know, read text messages and not reply. Just things that just seems like interaction between boy and girl, where it should just be like, I'm myself, you know, and I'm in because of this, rather than I look like this when the light hits me, or, you know, when I'm in the beach, I look like this. It's just a little weird.
So it's gotten to this type where it's like it's like an exotic thing, especially like the darker skinned women are like now overly like considered exotic all of a sudden, like we haven't always been around. Like
the problem,
like
I think.
Dropped.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying to what you were saying. It's what's trending.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, we should not be trends. We should not be trends, because it's like what's
we've
next.
always been trends, though.
No,
if we think about it, even our cultures, we have always been a trend.
Well, but the culture,
putting us out there like that.
No, but they can't take it like, it's like, all right.
No, they can. And they have done.
They have. But the fact remains that whatever we do, that even though it's a trend or whatever we do is still
pop
leaves,
culture.
yeah, leaves a mark. Even anything we put our hand into, like, it's like, oh man, we stick out. Look at basketball. We stick out.
But
if we started playing hockey, we probably
we're all starting.
If we started playing golf,
hockey players.
golf might be lit. I might watch it.
Right, when I said it was a trend, I was referring to the black culture. And when I say black culture, I mean black people in general, Africans. Everything we're doing is a trend. And the problem I have with trends are that they only last for a moment in time. They don't last long. So I feel like it's cool to wear the dashiki. It's cool to embrace the African culture now. What's going to happen in the next couple of years when people are not doing it anymore? Is it not going to be cool to be African anymore? Because, in all honesty, I feel like it's one thing to sincerely like it and want to be a part of it. It's another thing to do it because everybody else is doing it. That's I don't want to be a part of it.
And back to
but like the thing before is like, yeah, we've always been like sexualized beings
from jump.
But then it was like, all right, you don't show the black girl, but you put black girl traits on white people. But now it's like we're showing the black girl, but they're just overdoing it.
She's not saying anything.
Yeah.
She's just to be seen and not heard.
She's just to be seen, exactly.
But you know what the problem? All right, I'm gonna be real. We gotta call out our faults. The problem that I'm gonna say, you know, black girls play a part in that too, because they indulge in the sexual. Like they. Some of them enjoy, like some of them enjoy the attention that comes from being sexualized.
But
I agree, but then it's like that's the only way. That's not the only way, but that's the easiest way to get recognized as a black girl.
I wouldn't say that. I disagree. Wait.
I'm not saying
let me say this, right? There are people being seen and there are people being heard, right? But they're not both getting the same attention.
Right.
Like we've been to seminars and we've been to places where you see beautiful, intelligent black women speak, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go to their following, it'd be like 2,000. and you see a girl with a bikini pic or whatever it is and she has this amount. So we can't really blame it on anybody, because how many intelligent black women are you following and how many beautiful black women are you following?
Beside the negative stereotype thing, do we get like
a positive? I was gonna get to that. I was gonna get to that in specifics, because I feel like I know where he's going with that. So I'm gonna ask now. So what are some stereotypes that left lasting impression with you, like negative or positive? What are some stereotypes where you're like, wow?
Athletic, we're strong.
No, that's specific to you. Like an experience in which you're like, yo, I didn't even know it was like this. Would it be good or bad?
Whether good or bad?
Yeah.
I remember when I was 11. So I because my dad's job, we ended up moving to different parts of the world. And I remember, the first time I consciously remember leaving Nigeria and going to Burkina Faso, which for me was several degrees of culture shock. You're talking about going through puberty while going to a French-speaking country in an American international school. So the degrees were there. And I remember there was this one white kid who later ended up being my friend, but he would come up to me and ask me questions about my physical appearance. Like, why is your hair so curly? Like, it really, and I didn't know what the answer was. But then he would push on. Yeah, it is curly, just so you know.
To be curly.
No.
Shady.
He said it used to be curly.
Focus.
Let's get back, please.
But I remember the impression that left on me, because I remember going on as a 10-year-old and thinking, wow, I felt ugly, right? I felt like, my goodness.
We all get
I was like, man, my hair is weird. I need to do something to my hair, like make it straighter. Like that's what I was thinking. I remember, and I was looking media. I'm like, yeah, it seems like these guys have like the heartthrobs are like the spiky haired guy. This was around the the boy band era. Everybody had spiky hair. I was like, Mom, can I get gel? I was like, oh, can I get? And she told me that she had to explain that texture. So that left an impression on me early on about like, man, did I get our
like your black features?
Yeah, people like they really ask random questions about the way we look and how we
lip size.
All that.
Yeah. That was mine. For me, it wasn't specific about me, but it was about like Africa, I guess, or where I'm from. I remember when I first moved here, and it was like an African American student in my school. It was in high school. I don't know, we were like in conversation. I don't know what I said. I think I said something about a microwave, and they were like, there's microwaves in Africa?
Yeah. That happens all the time.
I think a lot of stereotype does stem from ignorance. If you get consistently asked about your country, if you sleep with lions, if you run around naked, if you have access to straight roads, if you even know what a TV is, if a microwave works in your country, at some point, if you've heard that over 20 times within the span of a month, which was my experience when I first came here, you have one or two options. You can either be really, really angry, or you can say, hey, well, that's interesting. Do you think like that? But let me tell you my experience. And the only thing that you can do is hope that person immediately corrects another person once that stereotype gets perpetuated. So I think one of the best ways to cure ignorance is through communication, and then the other way would be through exposure.
I was like, people would ask me stupid questions like, oh, there are roads.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we don't just fly everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
You got your shoes?
Yeah, like what kind of stupid questions?
The funny thing, what Christy is saying is by the time I'd come to America, right, I developed this identity where my accent was different from a typical Nigerian. So when I came here for school at 17, people didn't think I was African, and then they would always tell me, every time I would go, they ask me, where you from? I'd be like, Lagos, Nigeria. And they were like, no, but you don't look African. I'm like, what does an African look like? And then we would proceed to have an argument about, no, man, but you can't be African. Well, where you really from? Like your parents. And the questions would then follow up. People like, but is it really like the Lion King though? Do you guys walk around naked? Is there like a sim? And they would do the click tongues and all that.
This is the scary. We gotta blame Jamie Foxx for half of these jokes. Jamie Foxx ruined a whole bunch of our childhood.
It's not even just Jamie. It's a lot of comedians.
The shit that he do.
It's not just Jamie.
No. Obviously, the jokes come from somewhere. But the thing now, I feel like it's. I don't, you know, when
One
wants to wear furs or something.
Or like, are you a scam artist if you're Nigerian?
Yeah.
Are you
but that stereotype is also within the African community.
Africans
That's Africans to African too.
Wait,
go ahead.
Let me, so there was one, like, I went to a predominantly white middle school. Like, I was in the honors program. So, one for me.
Honors program, that's great. Let's give a round of applause.
Okay, please, continue.
So, there was a lot of shock for me too, because like I had to get over being black first. Wow. So I get the questions like, "Oh, do you live in a projects?" Mind you, I don't know what the project is.
You never been in a pissy elevator?
Like at that time, I didn't know what a project is. So when people ask me, "Oh, do you live in a project?" I'd be like, "Yeah." Like I don't know what you're talking about until afterwards. I'm like, "Oh," or they were like, "Oh, so do you guys use food stamps or whatever?" And mind you, I always thought food stamps were like actual stamps, like the post office stamps that you use, and like. I would just, like, I'll be asked these things, and I literally did not know until afterwards when they're like, oh, like, you know, it's like a debit card and things like that. So that was, for me, like, a culture shock, because it wasn't even me being African. It was just me being black living in Harlem. You assume that I'm on food stamps and that, like, I live in the projects.
Yeah, like, people assume, there were literally, like, I think 4 black people in our like entire class, and they will literally ask us like, "Oh, do you live in the projects? You guys use food stamps?" Like, let somebody have on a pair of white sneakers. "Oh, you're so gangster." Like, it was so weird because like I'm from Harlem. Like, I know like this is not gangster. So, and there were a lot of things that I wasn't aware of. So when they asked me things, I'm just like, yeah, I guess. And then it wasn't until after that I actually learned what certain things were. So it was weird. But
I mean, so this was recent, right? I had the same experience she had. Like, there was this girl I saw at my job. So I was like, oh, she was new. So I was like, oh, let me go talk to her, whatever. So me being, you know, so I was, you know, so I was trying to like, I was showing her pictures. And I was like, oh, I was.
You showing her pictures?
She's from India. She's from India, right? She's from India. She has
Stereotypes is a true.
Very, very big accent, like Indian accent, Nahid type of accent. So I was like, okay, so I just came from Ghana, and then, you know, I was showing her pictures. She was like, oh, you have clubs in Ghana? Ooh, there's a Range Rover in Ghana. So now I started getting tired. So I looked at it, I was like, in my head, I was like, don't say anything. Like, I was like, in my head, I kept saying, like, India is the worst. I'm sorry, I love Indian movies. But in my head, I wanted to, like, clap back. But I was like, is this the right thing to do? Let me just. Who said no, but this, like,
but it's coming. It was like a rebuttal for you.
I get it. Yeah, so I was like, no, I was like, yo, you know, come on, sis, like India. And
I'll move forward with what you're saying. So now, you feel this way. Have you ever been to India?
No. But
right, but you know, you have an impression on India. Yeah. So now this is also a stereotype. So we got to think about, where do they come from? Because it's like, where do you think? You know, we have the TV thing. Because when I came here at the age of 11, 12, right? Started middle school, and then it's like I got all the questions. I was when the first time it snowed, everyone was like, "Yo, come see snow." And bro, why are you bothering me? Like, so it's like, where does it come from? Where do you think it comes from? Is it just kids being funny?
No, it's literally what they believe. Like, if you think about it, different things have been happening in different times in history that have shaped what these stereotypes are. Whether it's from a phase where you know, let's say even like talking about like hair and nappy hair and where that came from and why they even like where that originated from, and then it filters through because you hear about it, you see it, and thank God now people have voices to say like those are stereotypes. Like even the chicken and watermelon thing. Personally, I didn't even know about the watermelon thing.
I love watermelon.
But the chicken and watermelon thing, it wasn't until
fried chicken is but I love watermelon.
During Black History Month, some store put it on sale, and they even were in the media for it. They were sued. Like, you can't do stuff.
Obviously,
stuff like that. But it's a lack of ignorance, and if you have the resources, like in a country like America, you have the resources to educate yourself. Mm-hmm. If it's somebody back home in Africa telling me, tell me about what the Western world is like. Tell me about this. You have the patience to sit down. But if somebody is asking you, are kids dying in Africa? I'm so scared to come, or whatever. It's like there's also this brainwashing of the media, but it's a laziness, and it's ironic because they think, they stereotype us as being lazy when they're almost ridiculously like it's almost like
they stereotype us as being lazy, but then they also say we take their jobs. Like it's a weird thing where you're blamed for like taking their jobs and working harder than them, but you're also seen as lazy. So I just think it's a place of hate that comes from.
Let me just say this, because for me, when I came here, I had my French background, my English background, and my Spanish background because of where I lived. So when I came here, they were so shocked that I would speak French, and they'd be like, how do you speak French but you black? Or how are you born in France but you black? And I'm like, how do you speak English but you're American? You're not from England, right? Like, you see, like you didn't understand. They're not really, like I feel like it's a lack of
awareness.
The education system too, because kids in Africa and kids in Europe, their education system is so much higher than here. Like I'm telling you, they cannot even point you where it's. If I tell them my mom is from Congo, they'd be like, where is that? I'd be like, it's in Central Africa. Where is that? Central Africa. Like they cannot even tell you how many continents. People think there's 8 continents, others say there's 5 continents. Like it's really ignorance and stupidity. Because I'm just like, at the time I was 13, and the level of education that I had, I'm not trying to flatter myself, but it was really like college level. Like, and also a lot of them are just ignorant. So it's really
I think that in America the system is very low. It's not as elevated like compared to Europe or Africa. A lot of people don't know their geography. They cannot even tell you where is Africa in the map, let alone Chicago. Like a lot of people, when I used to live, in Rochester, New York, upstate New York, a lot of my friends have never been to New York City, which is like in the same state. A lot of people don't travel, and it has to be with the educational system. I think that we don't really cover a lot of like parts of other countries beside, like the western part of the world. If they do cover Africa, they will cover just a vast part of it. They will not talk deeply about the continent itself. And it has to do with the educational system and the mentality of them not even wanting to know more for themselves.
You asked the question about where stereotypes come from. The reason why I wanted Milan to finish that point was, as he was talking about how he felt that he was going to respond, her response was also another stereotype.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. And
the reason I think stereotypes happen is it's a myriad of things, right? One is media. So if you look at media portrays African Americans as thugs, as aggressive, and women as that, and Africans are usually portrayed as poor, lack of resources, pregnant bellies, the diseases and all that,
or kings.
And so
not a media.
I think a lot. Recently. So I think a lot of that stems from stems from media portrayals, but also the fact that in the education system, if you have a lot of history not being accurate or maybe whitewashed, or that leads people to fill in the gaps about certain continents they don't know, and they fill it with what they see on TV and popular media. So
go ahead,
Karen, and what Taya was saying. For me, I feel also stereotypes is kind of like, where does it really come from? If you actually have to question stereotypes, where they come from, because when you're brought into this world, your peers and your parents are like, telling you certain things for you to feel a certain way about a certain ethnicity or a certain race. As being your parents and your peers, you don't know any better, so you just listen to what's being told. Right. Especially if you're in a community where it's just black people, or it's just you don't know until you obviously go to school, you go to college, you go to university, but subconsciously you already have that information in the back of your head. Until you get to know a different ethnicity, and then you'll see for yourself and go, well, hold on, wait, I can even have my own judgment now. Well, you're not like that, but I heard you was like that. So you have to get the correct information, or do your own research, or get to know somebody individual and find out what, traveling is the best experience ever. People should definitely do their own research in today's era anyway, because it's out there, it's in front of your phone. Everyone looks at their phone religiously, looks at their phone. So if you really wanted to divulge and get the information, you can do that. And if you don't want to get the information, or you don't believe Google, go to the library. I mean, it's all there. Just go get a library card and go, receive and collect the information. And for traveling, and this is just my opinion, of course, traveling is one of the best education you could have in regards to going around to see different countries and experience different cultures and understand how people live, why they live like that, and where it all stems from and comes from. So yeah, travel.
Africa in itself is such a huge continent that you can't cover everything.
Right.
So what you do see, like, even when I, like, growing up, they started doing like this, is that how you talk? That's one tribe.
Yeah. No,
that's one
specific
place in Africa. But once you show that to America, that's okay. That's what Africa is.
I think one stereotype that annoys me is the fact that people think that, like, we speak just one language. Like, they're not aware that in Africa, it's just a bunch of different countries who speak different languages, and in one country, you can speak a bunch of different languages. Like, they're just not aware, or they think that we have like one weather. I think that annoys me the most. Like, oh, it's always sunny in Africa. It's like, yeah, well, it's sunny, but we have seasons. Like, you know, like, I've been to Morocco and I had to wear a jacket most of my duration. December, January was freezing, you know. So they think that because you're from the African continent, you don't know what snow is or whatever the case might be. They're not aware that there's just a lot of different, you know, weathers, culture, languages that are, you know, part of the African continent. I think it's just this perception that it's a country, and that annoys me.
That stereotypes are also an agenda. There's an agenda behind. Like, sometimes I feel like stereotypes are pushed because of a certain agenda, and the media portrays a certain race a certain way because they have an agenda behind that race. Because the thing about it is that there's so many ways to keep a race down, and it's by keeping them in a certain, you know, space. You don't have to physically kill them.
Yeah, it's a mentality.
Yeah, you could socially ostracize them. You could socially keep them. That's why, if you think about it, in TV shows, there's a lot of
typecasting.
Yeah, typecasting where the black guy is the thug, the black guy is a deadbeat father. It doesn't work out between a black guy and a black woman. We bump heads a lot. You know what I'm saying? And
that's lies.
Huh?
No,
baby daddy issues.
Yeah, baby daddy, and they want you to see that consistently so they can keep that dysfunctional
mindset.
Yeah, the thing about the typecast is that I feel like I said earlier, the stereotypes have an agenda to it, and the reason why they are putting I'm gonna say black people in a particular light in media is to keep them in a certain place. So that's why you will have a black woman who's a single mother, a black father who doesn't see his kids or is fighting with his baby mother. They want to keep, even though I'm gonna be honest, there's some truth to it in the black community, but the reason why they're keeping that whole stereotype there for you guys to see and portraying it on TV every single time when they view black people is because they want you to feel that way. They want every other race to feel that way, and they want you as a black man to be like, dang, I guess this is how we are. There's nothing we can do about it. You understand? That's why I appreciate the shows like the Cosby Show, the Fresh Prince. You know, it was a show that talked about black family that, you know, were together and they held it down, and there wasn't no, you know, baby mama drama and all of that stuff. So
you know, when you look at a white family, you know, dog named Bobo, two kids, a girl, a guy, a boy and a girl. You know, hey honey, I'm home from work. Love you. Okay, don't wait up for me. Everything's so happy. But you know, when a black dude comes in, he's like,
what's up?
Like, yeah, who was that? Let me go through your phone. Who's like? It's just all stereotypes have an agenda. Even growing up in America, there was a stereotype that they displayed in school about Africans. They wanted even black, not only the white boys kids, and girls, they wanted the black African Americans, to understand and feel a certain way about Africans too, to be like, listen, oh, you know, Africa is suffering. They'll always, the books will read, be in a village, third world country,
education system,
whitewashing, and they wanted black Americans especially to feel that way, so we wanted, you know, black Americans wouldn't identify with being African.
True. If we're to be really honest and just be blunt with ourselves, some of these stereotypes, they're they're honest, right? It's just generalizations. It's
there's
the truth,
some
right?
truth to it.
There's some truth to it.
Yeah, it
and
can't be completely wrong.
We can't think, we can't be naive and say,
blame everybody.
Right.
Else.
What we need to do is just elevate the success stories that can get people out of this mentality of that's how that can get people or shake people out of that generalization or generalizing that the black people as this or Africans as this. Just to add to what you were saying, I feel like also a lot of people will generalize Africa as like it's a country instead of a continent.
Yes.
And even you see people these days showing the good parts of Africa, the modern parts, the infrastructure that nobody ever sees. And I think Trevor Noah, who's at the Daily Show, he did something in the media. He's a fantastic ambassador for Africa in terms of how he just shows the success stories of it, and you see it in Forbes, and you see it in all this. Even here you see it with Diddy. Diddy just released that documentary, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, and the theme of that whole documentary was about, we were stereotyped and typecasted, and we were painted to be these, drug dealers or whatever. But even after he lost Biggie, he said he wanted to change that whole narrative, and he wanted people to see that people in the rap industry are not just gangsters or whatever it is. And I think that's just where it is. And if we're to be honest, even Africans as ourselves, I think we're conditioned in a way with how we introduce ourselves, even as we live in America, wherever else in the world we live. How you introduce yourself, it's with an intention. And even though you sometimes don't think about it, I mean, you could have a name that's, let's say Bawo, and you're like, my name is Bawo, I'm from America, but my parents are Nigerian. You're already disconnecting yourself from the motherland, and so why would you accuse someone of having a stereotype if you're distancing yourself from something that you want to claim in a way, but you're not?
I said some of these stereotypes we contribute to as Africans as well. I'm just linking the whole African stereotype thing. I personally have family that still that live here, let's say they live here or anywhere else, but still refer to the continent as a country. So say when I'm going back to Africa this year and I'm like, sorry, where? Where you're from. So it's just the wording. So I think that's just a great example. If even within our own community, we just hold some of these stereotypes and not just complain about them.
I think, a lot of the ways that we can work against stereotypes is two things: communication and exposure. So Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie has this thing where she talks about the danger of the single story. And it's a TED talk, but the reason why, that's so important is that whenever we get asked those questions, this is what I started to internalize that, because I kept getting asked those questions, is I stopped getting angry, and I saw that as a teaching opportunity, because I actually realized that these questions, although ignorant, are coming from a place where they actually do not know. It's not like a
it's our job.
So when someone would ask me, if you come from Africa, how is Africa as a country? I'd be like, well, Africa isn't one country. It's actually over 50 countries. And let me further tell you that there's 54. Yeah. There's a north, south, east, west, and each
completely different words.
Completely different.
I don't think non-Africans will fully ever appreciate the fact that East and West are two different words.
Yeah, different.
The North is
don't speak that into existence.
It's way bigger than it looks on the map too.
Exactly.
It's the second largest continent.
Second largest continent. But the whole point is that we need to start doing that and educating more. And when we start promoting multiple narratives, we see that. Trevor Noah does a good job of him being. He's obviously mixed, but he talks about if you read his book, Born to Crime, he talks about what that's like, and we need to actually promote those type of stories. And exposure, someone brought Travel Point, just exposing people to different stories helps just cause you to think. And us as Africans, why I think Lucy and Bawo had a great point is I don't know that you can't not assign blame to one particular group. What I would say is that there's plenty of blame to go around. I think the point that Akram brought about a lot of people conditioning this colonial mindset. When Europeans came to Africa, they were the minority, but the way that they separated us was cause strife between the different tribes. Like you carve out a nation of people that were never meant to live together and force them to be one country, and you plant seeds of distrust. That's going to make them fight against each other, and all you have to do is go rule and say, this is what I'm going to do. And then the other thing with Lucy is that many of us here are Nigerians, and we all have different Nigerians, Beninese, Congolese, Ghanaians, Jamaican, and the fact
Rwanda,
Uganda.
Sorry, I mean,
she was trying to give it to you on a DL. You missed that one as well.
The whole point is that we have multiple tribes, and in within ourselves, we have this distrust. Yoruba people, Igbo people, we have to be able to say.
So can
we agree? I have a question after that.
Just to add to that, it's also like we also have to educate ourselves as Africans on what our different parts are like and what our nations are about and why, the history of our nations. Because sometimes, I won't lie, I don't know the history of every African country, and sometimes people want to ask you these questions, and yet we get frustrated because of these ignorant questions, and yet we also don't know some of these answers.
Like what Lucy and Tayo was saying, like, we don't have to blame it on the media.
That's another stereotype.
Sometimes I feel like
you gotta blame Tayo Cruz, the artist.
Tayo. So some of us blame the media a lot, but I feel like some of the medias are not coming from a bad place. It's just within us. Let me tell you something. It's Africa, right? So if I'm a media personnel and I'm going to Africa. The Africa is beautiful. The grass. Let me tell you, every part of Africa, Uganda, Kenya. I was just telling you last time. I like they have the safari. Yeah. It's very attractive to people. The same way when we watch movies and we see the World Trade Centers, that attracts us to come here. I think most of the time, stuff like that is very beautiful because you wouldn't want to go to Africa. Okay, so some of my castmates are blaming it on the media. Some are saying 80% it's media and 40% I disagree. I feel like it's 50-50, and then we should embrace our culture first, accept our culture, educate people in a way, but not really expect the media to do that for us. Let's all try and then explain to people where we're from.
So now we're gonna segue into solutions, about how we would debunk certain things, because obviously we've said these things. We are responsible for what happens now because we can tell our stories more than we did before. We have mediums, we have people with wealth in the Western, Eastern hemisphere, whatever it is. So we have people that can do this. So how can we debunk these rumors? How can we move forward with it? How can we show people what Africans are? I know it's not our job to do it, but I'm talking. Wait. To not make an ignorant person not, but how can we ease that, ease that in?
For me, I feel,
or should it be eased in? Should it be boom?
I mean, it's as much as you can't force something because you can tell somebody something, but it doesn't mean they're gonna listen, right? So I think it should be, to a degree, it should be bit by bit too, because you either want to learn or you don't want to learn, one or the other.
Right.
But starting with obviously the younger generation, you have to install it from them, because I feel that, not saying that the younger generation can't acknowledge what we're talking about, but I feel that this should be targeted at the younger generation and for them to understand that there's certain things that you need to understand and digest and understand different cultures. I think that's one of the starting first points for me, I believe we should go for.
I also think it's sometimes in the jokes that we have, whether it's amongst ourselves, sometimes when someone else is seeing, on outsiders looking at those jokes, they think it's okay, and that must be a thing. There are many Africans who say, "Oh, you're not African enough. You're not Nigerian enough. You probably don't. You look like you don't do that." That's a very unhealthy precedent to set. To us, it might be, okay, it's just a joke. Take it. No one cares. But to other people, it's that's the dissension. And then another thing that I feel like we can do is we act as educators. So I don't know if you noticed this, but I always pay attention to this. When people are always talking about, I went to Italy, I went to Greece, I went to Japan, and I went to Africa. I always go back, well, what country in Africa? Because that subconsciously tells them, okay, Africa is more than a country. So we have to just act.
It's not even a country.
My point is, it's more than that. So in the way we communicate with each other and in the way we portray ourselves, but also whenever we get to positions of power, we need to do our jobs as being people that tell those stories.
A lot of erasing the stereotypes about Africans does have to come from us because there's a power in our story, right? And a lot of times we lose the essence of that power. We don't tell that story enough. We don't use the platforms that we have, and even when we get the opportunity to get a seat on the table, it's sometimes dumbed down so that it can be appreciated by a perceived audience, which is a disservice to our culture because we don't do that for other cultures. So I think what we can do as Africans is take a hold of our narratives, be bold about those stories, use platforms where middlemen don't have to make decisions like YouTube, social media, Vine. Oh, Vine's dead, RIP. Or Instagram, and just say this is who I am. This is my unapologetic story. I think Issa Rae did a great job starting with a YouTube channel where she said she was the awkward black girl. That was an interesting title for her, but within that title that says awkward black girl, there's a lot of nuance that goes there. I'm not your stereotypical black girl. I'm actually awkward. I like some things that's not perceived as an African American, but this is still me as a black person. So I think we all need to do that so that we can help distill the idea that we're not a monolith. And that comes from us in our community, and that comes from us individually. And if we rally around stories like that, the establishment will be forced to put money behind that because ultimately they need to make money, and if the public wants that, they have no choice but to fund it.
I also feel like we shouldn't isolate ourselves from other race. We should socialize because a lot of black people, Africans, black Americans, sometimes don't like to socialize with other race because they feel like, oh, I don't vibe with this group, or they're not feeling me. So we should learn to socialize. We should learn to, not depend on the media. And, sometimes make them some nice African meal, just share, like listen to their thoughts. And then if, organize trips as well. Yeah.
So invite them in.
Invite them in.
I think like platforms like MinaTV, like things that we create ourselves, like African or Black generated content, because when we allow other people to tell our story, it just doesn't work out. That's where it starts. We allow other people to tell our stories. We allow other people to write our histories. So when we're the ones that are creating it, and also we need to support it, because if I'm creating something or if I'm starting a YouTube channel promoting my Africanness, but you'd rather watch Love and Hip Hop or something like that, like that's where it goes. Like there's people that want to tell a story. There are people that want to show you the real narrative, but nobody's listening. Well, let me not say nobody's listening, but not enough people are listening. So then you only get what the mass are listening to or what the mass are hearing, and that's where the telephone game starts playing. So we also need to create more, and we also need to support more.
But then it goes back to, I don't know if you've heard the term crabs in a barrel.
No.
Crabs in a barrel. Have you ever seen crabs in a barrel?
Yeah.
One tries to go up, next one pulls him down because they don't want him to escape.
Right, but then it also goes to that, where do crabs belong in a barrel?
No, but that's right. I was going to go deeper with it. So we're on the same point. No, he stopped. No, basically, like the whole thing is like everyone says crabs in a barrel. Okay, black people are pulling black people apart, but now it's the space in which we're given. If it's like it's not right. It's not right for crabs to pull crabs down. But crabs in a barrel is where you have a bunch of crabs in a barrel, and obviously crabs move with their hinds where they grab onto other crabs. So as one tries to leave, then another one's pulling it down. So now it's like you have like-minded or things. Someone does something that looks like you that you're pulling down from getting out the barrel. But think about it. Crabs don't belong in barrels, and what the hell is outside the barrel? So it's just. It's one of those things that people quote so much, but it's a situation that's non-realistic. Yeah. But if it's like 10 people going for one job, things are gonna be crazy. It's like in Hollywood, there are a whole bunch of A-list white actors, and there's specific roles for blacks to play. So now you start seeing people saying, I'm better than this guy, I'm better because they need their, this is how they pay their bills, this is how they feed their family. So things happen that way. So I do think, where we control our narrative more, now Issa Rae can have a bunch of black cast and they're getting paid, and you don't have that strife between black actors, and you have Atlanta with a whole bunch of black actors and actresses. So
I think the platform, as the platform gets bigger, we're gonna see people being themselves and telling the story, and just being black or being African without it feeling like
it has to be.
It has to be Michael Blackson saying, what the hell does he say?
Mother
sucker. You know what I mean? Where you need a catchphrase to be on TV, you know, and play your people.
I don't think crabs. My bad. It's crazy. I look at it. I don't think crabs are pulling. It's my perception. I don't think they're pulling them down because they don't want them to get out. I think they're pulling them because they're trying to get out with them. I don't know.
That's different.
But you know, they're crabs. I don't know if they.
We need a psychologist for that. We need a psychologist for that.
To get back to the point to get to that Tsunami and Akron was saying, I believe wholeheartedly that we have been telling those stories, and that's why you have Egyptians that are portrayed as white people, and people believe that Egyptians are white people.
Oh, lighter hair.
Or a lot of that. But a way that we can circumvent the system to Tsunami's points is by supporting these. But if you look at Issa Rae's story, she had the YouTube, right? You know, if they're done accepting you create a platform, and her whole thing was about how she was an awkward black girl. I'm an awkward black man. I'm the corniest black guy.
No, you're not.
Hold on. But
leave him. He has got a point.
White girl. So embracing her point when she embraced that awkwardness about her, and it garnered an audience because there were many people that felt that way. Yeah. And the thing with YouTube is that it's you putting out the content, and people just gravitate towards that. So if people in those positions are not given this power, what we need to do is use the networks that we have and then create a community around that they will be forced not to acknowledge you and say, well, that's getting an audience. That's why Vine stars, Instagram people have been able to do that. So I love the Tsunami's point where we need to support and create a community and
accept every single person for who they are.
Yeah.
There's no definition for a black guy or a black girl, which is like you saying the awkwardness or the cool guy or the athletic.
Or whatever you are,
it's
just
a whole
tell
bunch.
that story in your narrative.
And then it inspires people that can link to you to be themselves more.
Like the world is changing, and we have to change with it. We have to be open-minded. We have to be accepting of others and make sure that others accept us too, in a way where we portray ourselves as who we are in our best truth, in our authentic truth. You know, I cannot be upset at someone else wearing what my ancestors created, and I have to understand that it's evolution. We are growing as people, and we are changing. And if we want people to accept us, we have to also be accepting of others. It doesn't mean because they're wearing that outfit that it's okay they take our credit. No, of course it feels good to be appreciated and to give credit when it's due. But I feel like we just need to grow. Like when I mean grow, I don't mean immaturity. I just mean like grow as in just move forward together as people. Not as Africans, as Europeans or Indians, as people. We're moving together to get to a better place. Of us now wanting to grow and be understanding and not wanting to evolve with others. It's like my thing is I understand we had to bleed, cry, and we was beaten to death and rape and all that stuff by these people that are taking our stuff but not giving us credit. But if we keep going back to those times, we're never going to evolve and never going to grow. It's never going to be a change. We got to start making a move. And if we keep saying, oh, well, she copied me and she didn't give me credit for it. Yes, but I don't know. That's just me. I don't know how to say this in a more political way. But my thing is we have to start being the first one to accept a change and be okay with a change. And keep that change and not be in a slave mentality of, no, this is just for us and we cannot have another culture, take that away from us.
I was just going to say 3 things. I hope I'm allowed to say these 3 things. but the first thing that I think we need to do, we need to simultaneously become historians and educators. I think that a lot of stereotypes are informed by stories and just us understanding where a lot of us came from, how things became the way they became, informs our opinions today. And if we act as educators, we can educate people on what we've learned and actually correct false stereotypes or misleading stories. And I think the more we do that unapologetically, the better we can be about getting rid of this narrative. The second thing is making sure we call things out. And I think a lot of us are afraid of doing this because we feel like if we call something out, we're attacking ourselves. But I think calling something out is by whether it's the way we joke, the language we use, or the stereotype we promote within ourselves, that creates a habit in us that allows us to go out into the world and allow people to respect us because they see that we don't stand for that. So why should they even come for that? And then the other thing is we need to recognize our power. There's so much power we give to ignorant things, right? Like if you look at music that we portray, there's certain music or movie or media that does perpetuate the negative stereotypes about Black people, about Africans and all that. And we use our dollars to support that. And if we, as a community, decide to say, no, we respect your art, your craft, but we're not gonna stand for when you're using some of this language that is portraying us in one light. And until you become that representative that we think you can be, we're gonna hold our dollars. If we do that more, I think we can start to see more of the shift go to the different types of Instagram profiles that we should be supporting. So, we need to look within ourselves, check our history, hold people accountable, but also use the power of our dollars to control the messages that we want to have.
Sure. I agree. I think the first thing is defining Africa as like plethora of cultures and languages and things. Like when we say Africa or like you're African, it can look more than one way. It can sound differently. It can be different. Like let's not like put a box to what Africa is. It's vast. So that's one. Two, with the whole creating our own stories, telling our own stories, we can only do that and it can only go far if we support each other. Like, again, there's a whole continent. That's a whole audience that we can have. Like, if we contribute, if we support each other monetarily, like, there's so much we can do, but as people, we support things that don't even belong to us, that don't care about us, that tell our stories however they want it. And that's where our money is. And we need to change that. And we need to change what we need to start telling others what we want to accept. Like, I'm not going to watch it unless you portray us this way, or you change the way it is. And I think that it starts with us. We're all to blame for all these stereotypes. We started with us, and the only way to change it is to create these new stories, the true stories, and be okay with seeing somebody that's African and them not looking like us. This is what we are. This is our culture. This is our continent, and we're different, and we got to be okay with that. So, yeah, that's it.
I think everybody made fair points. I do think like you said, we have to take ownership of our culture. We are this vast, big continent, and I feel like in other continents, like even with us, we know cities in other continents. We know Paris, we know London, But when it comes to like Africa, it's like you said, it's Africa. People aren't celebrating cities, and it starts from there. Once we start making things unique, then people start doing specific research. Like when people want to go to a country, like if someone wants to go to France, they start picking up the language and things like that, because they know if you go to France, it's different than if you go to Germany and if you go to Italy, things as such. So we have to do our part in celebrating. We have to do our part in highlighting it. Like every time I put Lucy on my Instagram, I say a country or I say what part of Africa she's from, because she is African, but she's also an individual with a whole different type of background than I have, and we're both Africans, and it's like completely different. We're neighboring countries, being Benin and Nigeria, and we speak two different languages. And Christy and Sanami could talk about me for like 5 hours and I wouldn't know what the hell they're talking about, and we're all Africans in a room, So I do think, I was just
going to say, what happens when you put me on there? You don't.
I wouldn't. No, but obviously, and then, there's the Caribbean culture, which I'm in love with, whether it be the food, their accepting nature, or the dance, all that. So there is a whole bunch, Yeah. And you being a person that dances to African music, or eating African food, or there's so much that makes us African. It's not one thing. And the bigger roles we get and the more we tell our story. Because now, if I were to do a show about Africans, I will have about 10 different Africans type that I know. It wouldn't be just one African person. Now, the reason the next man might not know 10 different type of Africans is because he hasn't been exposed to our culture and nobody has told him that story. And I've never been the one to point fingers because we haven't had a chance to tell our story because we're still confused about our, our history, So I do think we have to take ownership of it. Yes, there's the dollar power, so we should do our part and not support things. And it was great when that movie came out about the Egyptian kings and it was white and it went straight to DVD. Yeah. And so things like that, we do have the narrative to control. And we do have to call out certain people, like Tyler Perry with the angry black woman. I've never seen a Tyler Perry movie. I have no interest in seeing Tyler Perry. There are people who relate to it, but I don't. There are people, wait. There are people who relate to it, I don't. So I have that power and I choose to use it. I'm not just going to be there complaining about Tyler Perry movies. I just don't watch it. That's and if you relate to it, you watch it and you rock with it. But that again shows the variation in Africans and blacks, in Caribbean, whatever it is. Yeah. So I do think we should take ownership, study our history, because I've learned more about Nigerian history being outside of Nigeria than in Nigeria because I went to school in Nigeria and it's not being taught. I knew a lot about white history because it's part of the syllabus, but not African history. So we do our part, we make this conversation, we call people out, and when we teach others, we shouldn't force it down their throats because when they were told these lies, it wasn't forced down their throats, it was just a TV show, it was Animal Planet that they oh, this is what's going on. Like if you think about it, they fly to African countries and they just go to the non-city parts and record that. So now it's not a coincidence that they don't want to have conversation with the non-Bushman people. So these are all things we have to be like, you know what, take ownership, take responsibility, study our history, teach people in a way where they don't feel like they're being forced to do it, and celebrate everyone's individuality. Because now when I'm celebrating the fact that you're African and you do this and I'm African and I do this and this country and I don't even have anything in common, but I still know they're African and I don't question their Africanness, then nobody else will feel the right to question anyone else's. So we should take ownership in it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. MinaTV, African Millennials, and we're out, right?
Yeah. Thanks for watching. And if you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you next time.